after taking in his neighbor's abandoned mail-order bride. A cowboy discovered true love in his cabin. The wind never stopped on the frontier. It howled across the wide, empty plains of Arden 7, carrying dust, sand, and silence. The land stretched forever, flat, dry, and unforgiving. Most people who came here did not stay long. But Elias Boone had stayed. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin at the edge of his ranch. The cabin looked old, but it was strong. He had built most of it himself after leaving his old life behind. Once, Elias had been a frontier ranger, a man who chased criminals, protected settlements, and survived battles that most people only heard about in stories. Now he wanted peace. Every morning, Elias woke up before sunrise. He checked his fences, fed the animals, and repaired whatever the wind had broken during the night. He spoke very little. There was no one around to talk to anyway. His nearest neighbor lived almost 10 miles away. Or at least, he used to. Elias had not seen that neighbor, Calderhays, in weeks. At first, Elias did not think much about it. People disappeared sometimes on the frontier. Some moved away. Some got lost. Some met worse fates. It was not a place where anyone asked too many questions. Still, something about it felt wrong. And then, one afternoon, everything changed. The sky was clear when Elias heard the sound. A loud mechanical buzzing broke the silence. Elias looked up, shielding his eyes from the sun. A delivery drone was flying low, too low. "That ain't right," he muttered. The drone shook violently as it moved, its lights flickering. It looked damaged, like it had come through a storm, or something worse. Elias stepped away from the barn, watching carefully. The drone tried to stabilize, but failed. With a sharp crack of sound, it dropped its cargo. The crate hit the ground hard, sending dust into the air. Then the drone crashed a few hundred feet away. Silence returned. Elias waited a moment. On Arden 7, rushing into things to get you killed. After a few seconds, he walked slowly toward the crate. It was large, metal, reinforced, not the kind of thing used for simple supplies. He crouched beside it and wiped the dust away. A digital label blinked weakly on the side. Recipient, Calderhays. Elias frowned. So it was meant for him, he said quietly. But Calderhays was gone. Elias stood there for a long moment, thinking he could leave it. He could report it to the system. Or, he sighed, "Fine, let's see what you were expecting, Calder." The crate was locked, but not very well. The crash had damaged the mechanism. Elias used a small tool from his belt and forced it open. The lid hissed as it lifted. Cold air escaped from inside. Elias froze. There was someone inside. A woman. She lay still, her eyes closed, her skin pale. Tubes and wires had been attached to her, but most were now loose or broken from the impact. For a moment, Elias thought she was dead. Then she moved. Just a little. He stepped back in surprise. What the hell? The label flickered again. This time, more information appeared. Designation, Mail Order Bride Unit. Name, Lyra Venn. Elias stared at the screen. He had heard of this system before. People in far colonies sometimes order partners through official channels. It was legal, but not something Elias respected. Still, this wasn't normal. "She's alive," he said quietly. The woman's breathing was weak. If he left her there, she would not survive long. Elias rubbed his face. Thinking, "This ain't my problem," he muttered. But even as he said it, he knew he wouldn't walk away. He couldn't. With a deep sigh, Elias reached into the crate and carefully lifted her out. She was lighter than he expected. "Guess you're coming with me," he said. Back at the cabin, Elias laid her on his bed. The room was simple, just a bed, a table, and a few shelves. Nothing fancy, nothing unnecessary. He removed the broken wires and checked her condition. She had a pulse. Weak but steady. He gave her water. Waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. The sun began to set, painting the sky orange and red. Finally, she woke. Her eyes opened slowly. They were sharp, bright, and alert. Too alert. She looked around quickly, taking the room, the door, the windows, everything. Then her eyes landed on Elias. She sat up suddenly. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but steady. "You're in my cabin," Elias replied calmly. "Found you in a crate." She blinked. "A crate?" "Yeah. Delivery drone dropped you. You were meant for Calderhays." At that name, something changed in her expression. Not fear, not confusion. Something else. But it was gone quickly. "He's not here," Elias added. "I know," she said quietly. Elias narrowed his eyes. "You know?" She hesitated. "Yes." Silence filled the room. Elias crossed his arms. "All right, let's start simple. What's your name?" "Lyra." "Lyra what?" "Lyra Van." Elias nodded slowly. "And you're telling me you're just some mail-order bride?" She looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "That's what the system says." Elias didn't like that answer. The night grew darker. Outside, the wind picked up again. Lyra sat at the table now, wrapped in a blanket. Elias gave her food. She ate slowly, carefully, like someone who had not eaten in a long time. But something felt off. She watched everything. Not like someone scared, like someone trained. Elias noticed. "You handle that fork like it's a weapon," he said. She paused. "Old habits." "From what?" She didn't answer. Elias leaned back in his chair. "Look, I ain't asking for trouble, but trouble tends to find me anyway. So I'd like to know what I just brought into my home." Lyra met his gaze. For a moment, it looked like she might tell him the truth, but then she looked away. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said instead. That wasn't an answer, but it was honest. Elias sighed. "Yeah, figured as much." He stood up. "You can stay here for now, just until we figure things out." She looked up at him. "Why?" Elias shrugged. "Because leaving you out there would be wrong." Simple as that. Later that night, Elias couldn't sleep. Something didn't feel right. He stepped outside, the cold air hitting his face. The stars above Arden. 7 were bright, too bright, the kind of sky that made a man think. Elias looked out over his land. Quiet, still, too still. Then, a faint sound. He turned sharply. Far in the distance, beyond the hills, lights, moving, not natural, not friendly. Elias's expression hardened. "Drones," he said. They were coming toward his ranch. Fast. He turned and ran back toward the cabin. Inside, Lyra was already standing. Awake, alert, like she had been expecting it. "Get down," Elias said, but she didn't move. Instead, she looked at him and said, "They found me." Elias stopped. "What?" Her voice was calm now. No fear. "They're not here for you," she said. "They're here for me." The sound of the drones grew louder, closer. Elias reached for his rifle. "Then I guess they're dealing with both of us." Lyra looked at him. For the first time, something like emotion crossed her face. Not fear, respect. Outside, the machines closed in, and the quiet life Elias Boone had built was about to end. The drones came fast. Their sharp metal bodies cut through the night sky, glowing red lights flashing like angry eyes. The sound grew louder with every second, breaking the quiet of the frontier. Elias Boone stood in the doorway of his cabin, rifle in his hands. Behind him, Lyra was already moving. "Get inside and stay down," Elias said, but she didn't listen. Instead, she stepped forward, her eyes locked on the sky. "They won't stop," she said. "They never stop." Elias frowned. "You talk like you know them." "I do." The first drone fired. A blast of energy hit the ground near the barn, sending dirt and dust into the air. Elias reacted instantly. He raised his rifle and fired back. One shot. The bullet hit the drone's side, but it didn't fall. "Damn," Elias muttered. "That ain't normal." "These aren't normal drones," Lyra said. Another drone dropped lower, scanning the area. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm. "Inside. Now." This time, she followed. Inside the cabin, Elias moved quickly. He shut the door, locked it, and activated the old defense panel hidden near the wall. The system hummed to life. Lights flickered. Outside, small metal poles rose from the ground around the cabin, old Ranger defense units. They had not been used in years. Still works, Elias said. Good, Lyra replied. You'll need it. The next moment, the defense system fired. Bright pulses of energy shot into the sky, striking one of the drones. It exploded in a flash of light. Elias gave a small nod. All right, that's one. But more drones kept coming. 3, 4, 6. Too many. Elias looked at Lyra. You said they're after you. Why? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the window and watched the drones. Then she said quietly, Because I wasn't supposed to survive. Elias turned toward her. That ain't a good answer. It's the only one I have. Another explosion shook the ground. One of the defense units outside was destroyed. They're breaking through, Elias said. Lyra stepped back. Then we don't wait. Before Elias could react, she moved. Fast. She grabbed a small tool from the table, then opened a side panel near the wall. Inside were wires. Oh, dusty. Forgotten. How do you even know that's there? Elias asked. I can see patterns, she replied. Her hands moved quickly, connecting wires, adjusting signals. Outside, one drone suddenly stopped. Then it turned and fired at another drone. Elias blinked. What did you just do? I changed his command, she said. The turned drone attacked the others, causing confusion. 2 more drones crashed into each other. Elias stared at her. You hacked them? Yes. You did that in 5 seconds. She didn't respond, but Elias understood. This woman was not what she claimed to be. The fight didn't last long after that. With the defense system and Lyra's control, the drones were destroyed one by one. Soon, the sky was quiet again. Only smoke and broken metal remained. Elias lowered his rifle. Well, he said slowly, that was something. Lyra stood still, breathing steady. Not tired, not shaken, like she had done this many times before. Elias walked closer to her. All right, he said. No more half answers. You're not just some lost woman in a box. She looked at him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded. You're right. They sat at the table again. The cabin was quiet, but the air felt heavy now. Elias waited. Lyra finally spoke. I wasn't bought, she said. I was placed. Placed. Yes. Hidden. Elias leaned forward. From who? From them. She pointed toward the broken drones outside. They are part of a private military group. Not official. Not legal. And they want you back. No, she said. They want me gone. That made Elias pause. Why? Lyra took a breath. I used to work for them. Elias's eyes narrowed. Doing what? Finding people. What kind of people? The kind that disappear. Silence filled the room again. Elias understood what she meant. You were a hunter, he said. Yes. And now you're the target. Yes. Elias leaned back in his chair. Well, that explains a lot. Lyra continued. I found something I wasn't supposed to find, she said. Data. Records. Proof. Proof of what? That people are being sold, moved, erased. Elias frowned. That ain't new. Frontier's always been like that. This is different, she said. This is organized, controlled, large scale. Elias didn't like the sound of that. And you ran. Yes. And ended up in a crate? That was the plan. Elias blinked. Wait, that was your plan. Yes, it's the best way to disappear. Once you are labeled as cargo, no one looks too closely. Elias shook his head. That's crazy. It worked, she said. Until now. Elias stood up and walked to the window. The destroyed drones lay scattered across his land. They found you anyway, he said. Yes. And now they know where you are. Yes. Elias sighed, which means they'll come back. Lyra nodded. Stronger next time. Elias turned back toward her. You planning to run again? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved around the cabin. The simple walls. The small table. The quiet space. Then she said, I don't know. The next morning came slowly. The sky was gray and the wind was weaker. Elias was already outside, checking the damage. 2 defense units were gone. The barn had a hole in the side. His land looked like a battlefield. So much for peace, he muttered. Behind him, Lyra stepped out of the cabin. She looked at the damage. This is my fault, she said. Elias shook his head. No, this is theirs. She looked at him. You could send me away, she said. Report me. You'd be safe. Elias laughed softly. Safe? Out here? There's no such thing. She didn't smile. I'm serious. So am I, he replied. He looked out at the land. This place, it's mine. I don't let people come in here and start making problems. He turned to her. And I don't hand people over like cargo. Lyra held his gaze. Even if it puts you in danger? Elias shrugged. Danger's been following me my whole life. Guess it finally caught up. Hours later, Elias worked on repairs while Lyra watched. Then she stepped forward. Show me, she said. He looked at her. Show you what? How to fix it. Elias raised an eyebrow. You ever done this kind of work? No. He thought for a moment, then handed her a tool. All right, don't break anything. She nodded. They worked together in silence at first. Then slowly, something changed. It felt normal. Strange, but normal. For the first time, the cabin didn't feel empty. As the sun began to set again, Elias noticed something. Lyra wasn't just learning. She was improving fast. Too fast. You learn quick, he said. She looked at the tool in her hand. I was trained to adapt. That's more than adapting, Elias replied. She didn't respond. That night, Elias sat outside again, watching the horizon, thinking. Lyra stepped out and stood beside him. They'll come back, she said. Yeah, Elias replied. Next time it won't be drones. I know. She looked at him. You still want me to stay? Elias didn't answer right away. Then he said, You didn't choose this. Neither did I. He stood up. But if they're coming, then we'll be ready. Lyra watched him. Why? She asked. Elias looked out at the dark land. Because out here we don't run. Far above the planet, hidden in orbit, a ship watched. Inside, a man stood in the shadows, looking at a screen. On the screen, Elias's ranch. And Lyra. She survived, the man said. Another voice replied, Orders? The man smiled slightly. Send a team. Pause. Not drones this time. Back on the surface, the wind began to rise again. And this time, it carried war with it. The storm came before the attack. Dark clouds covered the sky of Arden 7, and the wind grew stronger than usual. Dust rose in thick waves, making it hard to see far ahead. The land felt different, tense. Elias Boone stood outside his cabin, looking at the horizon. They're coming, he said. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes sharp. Yes, she replied. This time they won't test. They will finish it. Elias nodded slowly. Good, he said. Saves time. For the next few hours, they prepared. Elias opened parts of the land he had not touched in years. Hidden panels under the ground slid open. Old ranger systems came back to life. Defense turrets, signal blockers, and motion sensors. The quiet ranch was turning into a fortress. Lyra worked beside him, moving quickly and with purpose. Your systems are old, she said. Still work, Elias replied. They can work better. Without waiting, she began adjusting them, changing settings, improving signals, linking systems together. Elias watched her for a moment. You sure you were just finding people? He asked. She didn't look at him. I did many things. Yeah, he said. I can see that. By nightfall, everything was ready, or as ready as it could be. Elias stood near the fence line, rifle on his shoulder. Lyra stood on the roof of the cabin, watching the sky. The wind howled. Then lights appeared, not small like drones. Big, bright, ships, 3 of them, descending slowly through the clouds. Elias's grip tightened. Well, he said quietly, that's new. They brought a team, Lyra said. How many? Enough. The ships landed far from the cabin, beyond the hills. For a moment, Everything was still. Then shapes began to move. Figures. Armed. Organized. They're spreading out, Lyra said. They want to surround us. Elias smiled slightly. Let them try. The first shots came from the hills. Energy blasts hit the outer fence, lighting up the night. Elias reacted instantly. Now! The defense system activated. Turrets rose from the ground and fired back. Bright lines of energy cut through the darkness. One attacker fell, then another, but more kept coming. They're trained, Elias said. Yes, Lyra replied. Like me? The attackers moved carefully, using the terrain for cover. They were not rushing. They were patient. They're testing our defenses, Lyra said. Elias nodded. Then let's test them back. He activated another system. The ground near the attackers suddenly exploded. Hidden traps buried under the dirt. Several enemies were thrown back, but still they advanced. Inside the cabin, warning lights flashed. Multiple entries detected, the system said. They're getting closer, Elias said. Lyra jumped down from the roof. We can't stay in one place, she said. They'll break through. Elias grabbed his rifle tighter. Good thing I don't plan to stay put. He opened a hidden door in the floor. Below it, an underground tunnel. Lyra looked surprised. You didn't mention this. Elias gave a small grin. Didn't need to. They moved through the tunnel quickly. Above them, the sounds of battle grew louder. Explosions, gunfire, shouting. The ranch was no longer quiet. It was alive with war. They came out near the far side of the property. From there, they could see the attackers more clearly. About 20 of them, all armed, all focused. That's not a retrieval team, Elias said. No, Lyra replied. That's an execution team. Elias took a deep breath. All right, let's make this hard for them. They attacked from behind. Elias fired first, hitting one of the soldiers before they even realized what was happening. Lyra moved next. Fast, silent. She took down 2 more before they could react. The enemy turned quickly. Contact behind. The fight became close and intense. Elias used the land, rocks, fences, shadows. He knew every inch of this place. It was his advantage. Lyra moved like a ghost. Precise. Controlled. Every move had purpose. One attacker rushed toward Elias. Elias stepped aside and struck him down. Another aimed at Lyra, but she was faster. Within seconds, the numbers began to fall. But the enemy adapted. They're regrouping, Lyra said. Yeah, Elias replied. And they're not running. They won't. Suddenly, a loud sound came from above. Another ship, bigger, stronger. It hovered over the battlefield. That's command, Lyra said. A voice echoed from the ship. Lyra Ven, this is your final warning. Stand down. Lyra froze. Elias looked at her. You know them? Yes. The voice continued. You were never meant to escape. Elias stepped forward. Well, she did, he said loudly. And now you're on my land. Silence. Then remove them both. The attack became heavier. Stronger weapons. More firepower. Elias and Lyra were pushed back. We can't hold this forever, Elias said. No, Lyra replied. Then she looked at him. But we don't have to do it alone. At that moment, a new sound filled the air. Engines. From the distance, vehicles approached. Lights appeared across the plains. Elias smiled. Took them long enough. Lyra looked confused. Who? Elias pointed. Neighbors. Other settlers arrived. Old trucks. Modified machines. Men and women with weapons. Not soldiers. Not trained, but ready. A man stepped forward. You didn't think we'd ignore all that noise, did you, Boone? Elias laughed. Good to see you, Harris. The man nodded. Looks like you got company. Yeah, Elias said, and they ain't friendly. Harris raised his weapon. Then let's fix that. The battlefield changed. Now it wasn't just 2 people. It was many. The settlers joined the fight. They didn't have perfect aim. They didn't move like soldiers. But they had something else. They had will. They had heart. And they had each other. The enemy didn't expect this. They were trained for control missions, not for a full resistance. Their lines broke. Their movement slowed. Elias saw the moment. "Push forward," he shouted. The settlers moved together. Lyra fought beside them. For the first time, she wasn't alone. One by one, the attackers fell. The ship above hesitated. Then it began to rise. "They're leaving," someone shouted. Elias lowered his rifle. "Yeah," he said. "They got what they came for." Lyra looked at him. "They didn't get me." Elias nodded. "Exactly." The battlefield grew quiet again. But this time, it felt different. Not empty. Not lonely. Alive. Later, as the settlers gathered, Harris walked over. "You want to explain what that was?" he asked. Elias looked at Lyra, then back at Harris. "Trouble," he said. Harris nodded. "Figured." He looked at Lyra. "She worth it?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Yes." That night, Lyra stood outside the cabin again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Voices filled the air. People. Life. Elias walked up beside her. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "This is new." "What is?" She looked at the settlers. "People staying." Elias smiled slightly. "Out here, we don't leave our own." Lyra looked at him. For the first time, she believed it. Far above the planet, the large ship moved away. Inside, the same man watched the screen. "They resisted," someone said. The man nodded. "Yes." "What now?" The man smiled. "Now we send everything." Back on Arden, 7, the wind calmed. But the war was not over. The night after the battle was quiet. Too quiet. The settlers had gone back to their homes. But not far. This time, they stayed ready. Lights could be seen across the plains, small but steady, like stars on the ground. Elias Boone stood outside his cabin, looking at the horizon. "They'll come back," he said. Lyra stood beside him. "Yes," she replied. "And next time it won't be small." Elias nodded. "Good," he said softly. "We'll be ready." But deep inside, both of them knew the next fight would be different, bigger, harder. The next day, the work began. Not just repairs. Preparation. Elias called the settlers together. For the first time in years, the scattered people of that land stood in one place, listening. Men, women, families, all different, but now connected. "They're coming again," Elias said, "and they won't stop unless we stop them." Some people looked nervous. Some looked afraid. But no one walked away. Harris stepped forward. "What do we do?" Elias looked at Lyra, then back at everyone. "We fight smart," he said, "not just hard." Lyra stepped forward. At first, the settlers were unsure of her, but when she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "They are trained," she said. "They follow orders. They expect fear." She looked around. "So we give them something else." "What?" someone asked. She answered simply, "Resistance." Over the next few days, the entire area changed. The ranch was no longer just one man's home. It became a center. People brought tools, machines, old weapons, anything they had. Elias showed them how to build defenses. Lyra showed them how to think like the enemy. Traps were placed. Signals were hidden. Communication lines were built between homes. For the first time, the frontier stood together. At night, Elias and Lyra worked alone, fixing systems, checking plans, preparing for what was coming. One night, as they sat inside the cabin, the room felt different, warmer. Lyra looked around. "This place," she said softly. Elias looked at her. "What about it?" She hesitated. "It doesn't feel like a hiding place anymore." Elias smiled slightly. "Good." She looked at him. "It feels like something else." He didn't answer, but he understood. 2 days later, the sky changed. No storm, no warning, just silence. Then a massive shadow appeared above, the largest ship yet. It covered the sky like a dark cloud. Elias stepped outside. "Well," he said, "they brought everything." Lyra stood beside him. "Yes." The ship stopped. Then smaller ships began to drop from it. Many, Too many to count. They're serious now, Elias said. They always were, Lyra replied. A voice echoed across the land. Cold, controlled. Final operation begins. The attack started. The ground shook as soldiers landed across the plains. Vehicles moved forward. Heavy weapons fired. The settlers didn't wait. They fought back. The defense system activated. Turrets fired. Traps exploded. Signals blocked enemy communication. The battlefield turned chaotic. But this time, the settlers were ready. Elias moved through the fight with confidence. He gave orders, helped where needed, protected those who fell behind. He wasn't just a lone cowboy anymore. He was a leader. Lyra fought beside him. But something had changed. She didn't move like someone running anymore. She moved like someone protecting. Her eyes stayed on the people around her, not just the enemy. The fight grew harder. Enemies kept coming. Stronger, faster, more organized. They're pushing through. Harris shouted. Elias looked around. The line was breaking. Lyra stepped forward. I can stop this, she said. Elias turned. How? She looked up at the ship. They're controlling everything from there. If I reach their system, I can shut it down. Elias frowned. That's suicide. Yes, she said. Silence. The battle continued around them. Elias looked at her. You're not going. I have to. No, they won't stop, Elias. Then we fight until they do. She shook her head. This ends it. For a moment, neither moved. Then Lyra said softly, I don't want to run anymore. Elias's expression changed. I know, he said. She stepped closer. For the first time, I have something worth staying for. Elias didn't speak. Then he handed her a device, a small transmitter. What's this? She asked. Old ranger tool, he said. Gets you into their system faster. She looked at him. You trust me with this? Elias smiled. I trust you with more than that. Lyra nodded, then turned and ran. She moved to the battlefield, avoiding fire, using cover, moving faster than anyone could follow. Her target, the command signal, a control tower unit placed by the enemy. She reached it, connected the device, closed her eyes for a second, then began. Inside the system, everything lit up. Commands, signals, orders. She moved through them like she had done many times before. But this time, she wasn't following orders. She was breaking them. Outside, the battle continued. Elias fought harder. Time was running. Come on, he said under his breath. Then, everything stopped. Enemy weapons froze. Vehicles shut down. Ships went silent. The sky became still. Lyra opened her eyes. It's done, she whispered. Back on the ground. The settlers looked around, confused. Then, relief. The enemy had stopped. Elias ran toward Lyra. She stood near the control unit, weak but standing. You did it, he said. She looked at him. Yes. Then she smiled, a real smile. The large ship above slowly turned, then began to leave. No more attacks, no more threats. The war was over. Days later, the land was quiet again, but not empty, never empty again. The settlers stayed connected. The ranch became something more, a place where people gathered, a place where people belonged. Elias stood outside his cabin. Lyra stood beside him. The wind moved softly now, not harsh, not cold, peaceful. You could still leave, Elias said. She looked at him. Do you want me to? He shook his head. No. She smiled slightly. Then I'm not leaving. Elias nodded. Good. They stood there together, looking out at the land, not as survivors, not as fighters, but as people who had chosen to stay. On a distant world, far from control and systems, a simple truth remained. Humans were not cargo, not objects, not things to be owned. They were something stronger, something harder to break. In a small cabin on the edge of nowhere, a cowboy and a woman who once ran from everything finally found something worth holding on to.